times, and it looked quite professional. They have badges on and all that sort of drama. Yeah. Right. So looking at money, thinking about what money's job actually is. And the other day, which was yesterday, okay, you actually discovered one of the jobs of money. It began with the word medium. Isn't next to grande. Large. Starbucks. What do we think? Medium of something. You do know it, yeah. Medium of something. What do we think? Team. Medium of something. Medium of trade, yes, or the fancy word for trade? Exchange. Medium of exchange, which meant that money was going to be in the middle of the exchange. Yeah? Just as if there's ever a disagreement between you and a sibling, sometimes mum will come down and stand in the middle. Not that there ever would be, I'm sure. Right? Siblings is how many? One. Ooh. So there's lots of this going on. Siblings? One. Three siblings. Goodness. All fighting over the remote at once. So, to cut a long story longer, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So instead of it being the 4 siblings, it's the 4 functions of money. There's only 4. But it'd be good to know 4. First one, as we said, was the medium of exchange. Check out this next one. Unit of account. It is very old English language. I'm sorry. There's probably more hip, modern slang ways of saying it. Trying to think of it now off the top of my head, and I can't think of any. But I'm sure there will be some. This one says a means of deferred payment. Deferred. That's not the one before the 4th. And it needs to be a store of value. That one you probably understand quicker than the others. You know? Unlike the sheep that we talked about on the boat. A store of value. Something is storing, it's holding on to it. So it is holding on to its value. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it should do, shouldn't it? I don't know if you've ever accidentally left money in your pocket when it's gone through the wash, the laundry. Yeah. Oh no, what's this? Oh, it's money. All right. In the old days, the banknotes used to be made of paper. All right. When they come out of your pocket after they've gone through the wash and they're made of paper, it's like all, it's slush. Yay! That was my money. But being made of paper, it also meant one other thing, is that the students in New Zealand used to write on the notes, which technically is illegal, by the way. Facing the banknotes is illegal. Right? But they used to draw like little horns on the people and vampire teeth. Yeah. Because New Zealand's a British colony, yeah? So on the banknotes, there's the picture of the Queen. But not everybody's a big fan of the Queen. So they'd be drawing. Sometimes people would write, I don't know why. Remember, this is before the internet, so they had to amuse themselves somehow. Yeah. Sometimes they'd write their phone numbers on things. Crazy. I know. All right. And then, of course, you hand it over to someone in a shop, and then it goes all around, and then and it becomes like a bit of a, I don't know, a gamble, a lottery as to who ends up with the banknote in the end, and then whether they call your number. It's a weird thing for them to do. So stores of value, it has to stay the same. $10 is $10. $20, it's $20. Yeah. Should be in the middle of the exchange. It needs to be a unit of account, which means, how should I put this? You need to be able to use it to measure, right? You need to be able to figure out what something is worth with it. Okay? It needs to be a means of deferred payment. Anybody ever deferred anything? Right. You might know what it means already. Yeah. Let's have a guess. How about there's a deadline coming up for you in a goodness. There's a deadline coming up for you in a class, like I don't know, test, assignment, you have to hand in something? You had those? Yeah. And you put it off until later. I won't do that now. I'll do that later. Yeah? Well, the word we use to explain putting something off till later is the word deferred. So at the moment in the United States, as you're probably aware, they've got some issues. Okay? And some students are wanting to go to university, but they're not sure because, yeah, everything's happening. So some of them are deferring their decision and saying, well, I'll tell you what, because of all the worries in America at the moment, I might not go to America this year. I might put off going to university for a year and then go the next year. Yeah? That would be deferring that particular decision. Anybody know about Hawaii? Apparently there's a university in Hawaii. Yes? Yes. I don't know if Hawaii is doing better than the rest of America with regards to the virus, but there's been a number of New Zealand basketball players who have gotten scholarships to the University of Hawaii. Yeah. So maybe they're doing better than the rest of America. Right, so let's have a look at them. One at a time. First one. The medium of exchange, as we said, it is in middle. Middle exchange. Yeah. That allows goods and services to be traded. If you didn't have that, you'd have to go back to the idea of barter. If we weren't using money, as we saw the other day, the system before money was barter. So that's quite an important function. However, in order for barter to work, as we saw, we needed that double coincidence of wants. But as we said, that's what money solves. Money solves the problem of the double coincidence of wants. Yeah? Okay. All right. What else does money have to do? As a job, it has to store its value. That's going to be quite important, if you understand. You might have money that's sitting in a bank account, or in a little tin box under the bed. I don't know. Buried in the backyard. I don't know where you put your money. No idea. Don't want to know. You've got to hope that by the time you come to use the money, that it's still worth the money that's printed on it. You may not be able to buy as many goods, not saying that, but the actual amount is still there. There is some weird things about your banknotes. You might be aware of this. If you've ever gone to pay for something with actual cash and there's been a tear in the banknote, sometimes they won't accept the note. Does that happen to anybody? Yeah. And in New Zealand, there was a rule, and I know this one because, well, I know it from a long time ago, because we were dealing with money a lot. Right? In the supermarket, people would come in with cash. Remember, this is before electronic transactions. Yes, I'm that old. Right? Okay. This is even before something called a checkbook, all that time as well. So people would come in with actual cash. Yeah? And then come up, and so the rule from the bank was that you had a banknote, there it is, right? And there was a percentage of the banknote, and I think it needed to be over a third. Over a third, and it had to have the number on the side. And as long as that's how much of the note was there, you were able to accept it as a banknote. Yeah. But if it was less than that, or if it was still that amount but the number wasn't there, you didn't accept it. So we had to have those sorts of rules. And anybody been to Thailand, aware that there is such a country? One of the things that they do quite often in Thailand is they'll shine the light over the notes in the shops to make sure that they're not fake. It's quite a cool thing to see. And sometimes they'll have little signs up next to the counters that show what it's supposed to look like under the light. And then there's like a big cross through this one. Don't set that one. So you've got to hope that the money you have is still worth the same amount when you go to use it. And the third one is that idea of value. That's me when I was little. Believe me? It's not. That's it. Right. Anything that allows the value of something to be counted. So it's like that measuring stick, that tally idea. Yeah. Money needs to be able to do that job. You need to be able to say, this is worth that much money. Money doesn't do that, then it's no use. There might be pretty pieces of paper, but you might want to wallpaper your house with them, frame them, stick them on a wall, wrap them in plastic and hang them from the ceiling. Yeah, I did that. The notes are wrapped in plastic and hung from the ceiling. What's that? Yeah. I've got a few more floating around something that I need to fix and put up there. Some of them fell down. I blame Emma. I think she was hungry and thought, I don't have enough money for lunch. Might have got a bit of a shock. The fact that 90% of them aren't real. Well, I say real, there's real and then there's legal. There's a difference between the two. Some of them aren't real in that they're actually photocopies of money, like old money, so pretend money. Yeah. Others are just old versions of money that are no longer legally in circulation. And you can actually buy them in shops, and people collect them. Yeah. There is one that I've had my eye on getting, or a couple, that I haven't managed to get yet. I have seen it. I have physically held it in my hand, but it wasn't mine to take with me, and I couldn't offer any amount of money to get it. It is one of the most expensive monies to buy, believe it or not, for collectors, and it is the Zimbabwean banknotes, because some of them were up around the quintillion, billion-dollar sort of amount, and they look amazing. And so that would have been good, and it still would be, to go up on the wall there. One day I might. Yes, yes, it will be. Yeah. So I mean, if you ever were particularly interested, you could have a look and see the different countries and the like from those bills. There is quite a rich history, and as I said to you the other day, if you go into Bank Negara, they have that museum, and you can have a look at the different coins and the different banknotes and the colours and the, you know, this is when it was more British and this is when it was more Malaysian and all of that sort of an idea. It shows you that history as it goes through. And I found it interesting, but then I'm an economist and I would, yeah. And the year 12's found it quite interesting as well. And if you are from Malaysia, then it might be quite interesting to you to see that as a history. But other countries as well have similar histories with their banknotes. You might see that in other countries too. So that is the unit of account. You need to have some way of measuring it. Just as your mum and dad, when you were little, probably stood you against a wall and put a mark there to say that's what your height is. Yeah. And then you went back and see, just check. Yeah. That's a way of measuring. You need to have some way of doing that. Otherwise, it's difficult to tell if you have grown or not. And then there's that one. That was the scary one. That deferred payment. The idea that you're able to buy something now and pay for it later. Money enables you to do that. One of the ways money enables you to do that is because it's a store of value. Yeah? Somebody says, I'll pay you tomorrow. Well, that's all right, because you know that tomorrow 40 ringgit is still going to be 40 ringgit. Yeah? Not going to be 10. You know you're going to get the money. You just haven't got it right now. It enables businesses to operate loans, right, offering debts for people to have. And what's the word beginning with C, which I haven't written up there? You know this one? Sometimes you carry it in a car. Yes. So another way to explain deferred payments is the idea of credit. Yeah? I don't know if any of you have credit cards. I can ask. Yeah? You know, the average number of credit cards per American is 5. All right? It's a country where they'll use one credit card to pay off another. You might be aware that there are different types of credit cards, and depending how much money you have, some credit cards are gold colored. That means you can borrow more money. Other credit cards are platinum colored, and that means you can borrow even more money. Yeah? You understand that? It's fairly straightforward. Little story for you. Previous school in New Zealand, or school in New Zealand that we were at. I said it was quite an expensive school. Some of the kids who went there, some of their families, their parents had a bit of money, a little bit. Yeah? And I might have mentioned that to you before. I might have mentioned to you, I think, the girl who used to fly the helicopter to school. Yeah, same school. Yeah. Well, there was some parents who decided, tell you what, we'd like to take a world cruise. Which obviously don't do it. Yeah, not a good idea. Really not a good idea. But that's what they decided to do back then. This is, a decade or more ago. Okay? Yeah, a while away. Probably 2 decades ago, just about. And so that's what they wanted to do, that the parents did. But they didn't want to take the kids. They just wanted it to be the parents. So they did, but then they knew that the kids would have to have some money in order to live. So parents got out their credit card. Guess what they did? Gave it to the kids. One was 16, the other was 14. Now, when I say credit card, it was a platinum credit card. So in New Zealand, that would have given them up to, I think, about 20,000 New Zealand dollars worth of credit. Maybe more, not sure. Multiply that by 4 to get ringgit. That's a bit of money. Yep. And there's a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old with a platinum credit card in New Zealand. They weren't living in a small house, by the way. So, what do you think happened? They're not going to buy all the nutritious food that you might eat. No, no, no. All right? They're not going to be studious and study. No, no, no. They invited all their friends around. And whatever the friends wanted, that's what they bought. Yeah? They didn't do particularly well in their exams, I've got to say that. Mum and Dad came back and was, oh, look at the house. It's a different colour. It's okay. Credit. Money enables you to do that. You can get a loan from the bank. Can. Possible. Try and avoid it as long as possible, but it is possible. Yeah. We know these sorts of things, yeah? You can get personal loans from the bank. You can get student loans to cover your education at university. You can get what are called mortgages, which are very big loans to pay for usually houses. Yeah. There's also some weird mortgages called reverse mortgages, where they give you the money and then they take your house from you, bit by bit. Oh, good. You're applying for a summer internship at Yale University. I will have to write a letter of recommendation. So, which is something you all would think about. Yale University sounds very nice. That's what credit will enable you to do. It will enable banks to earn a profit off of loaning you money. It will enable you to buy things that you may not have been able to buy before because you didn't have the money right then and there. Yeah, have you ever seen that? You've gone to a shop. Yeah, I was tempted. I admit. I was tempted. The iPhone 12. I was tempted. Then I saw the price. Yeah. But very handily, they've got little signs underneath it that say 200 ringgit per month. Or, I don't know, 24 months or something ridiculous like that, which is 2 years. So if you are prepared to pay 200 ringgit per month for 2 years, you might get paid. Well, the only way they're able to do that is because of this. That's it. Because the business knows that they will get a customer, they'll get the revenue, but that the value of the money is going to still be the same in the future as it is now. So they don't have to worry. It's also got a very good scheme when you think about it. Right? They lock you in to a contract over time. You might end up having to pay fees and interest costs potentially as well. But then at the end of it, it's very easy to say, well, if you upgrade to the next version, yeah. So they hook you again, and it's another 2 years with a different one. I bought, I think, one of my first computers on that sort of a scheme. It was only 3,000 New Zealand dollars, which, again, multiply that by 4, But going back all of that time, that was a lot of money. I didn't have that money, so I was a student. So I thought, well, how about I do this? How about I essentially borrow the money from the business and just pay them back? Turned out it was going to cost me, by the time you added interest rates that they added to it and fees that they added to it, it was going to cost me nearly twice the cost of the computer to buy it over that extended period of time. So it's good business for businesses to do it. I mean, if everybody waited until they had the right amount of money to buy something, people wouldn't buy it. You know, you've seen the prices of houses. Some people own houses, so they must have the money to buy the house, you know, don't they? Or have they borrowed the money to buy the house? A mortgage, perhaps. But if you were to wait until you had that much money, it would take you a while. Yeah, our friend May in New Zealand waited until she had enough money to buy a house outright. Right, so we were living in a house. I've been living in houses for quite some time. She's younger than us, right? She got married before she got a house. Yes. Right, and it was only when they sort of put all their money together and worked out, yeah, I think we've got enough. And so she would have spent at least 20 years saving the amount of money in order to have the amount of money to buy a house. Maybe that's what you do as well. You know, you want a new phone, you save for it. You have the money to get it. Yeah. You want a new computer, you have to save for it, you get it. That's how it works. No, Mum and Dad just give it to you. Here you go. Here's a new one. Right, so those are the functions of money, the jobs of money. There were 4 of them. You've got 5 fingers, so you should be able to at least count on those 4. Yeah? You are going to need to know them. You're going to need to know what they do so that you're better able to explain how money works. Right. The next one, and rather confusingly, it also begins with the letter F. Is the idea of features of money. Right. Now, a better way to describe it is characteristics, which is about behavior. How does money behave? So we had the social situation where it was, this is your name, this is your job, then it's, what do you like? What things are you interested in? Yeah, that's the next step. Or, if you're talking about someone else, you might be describing their behaviors, their characteristics. Yeah? Does that make sense? So when you're describing money, there are certain key things that money needs to behave like in order to be able to do those 4 jobs. All right, to do those 4 jobs, it needs to behave in a particular way. Like this. Might be a little difficult to see. The black on the blue. Well, that's okay. When you write your notes, all right, you can have it any colour you like. Any font style you wish. I know some learners get a bit annoyed with my fonts because I use the same font every single time. It was in Thailand, yeah, that I decided I would use one font for everything. And I chose a font I liked, and I stuck with it, and I used it for everything. It was in China when I decided I would use one format for slides and use that format for everything. So I still do today. Obviously, each time you go to a different place, there's different fonts. And so I found this one and I like it. Yeah, but you don't have to use it. But one of the reasons why I like it is because you know it's mine. Yeah? You know I've done that. So when we do stuff here at school, sometimes I'll have to put something into a little box or a table that gets shared to other staff members, and I tend to try and put it in this font. And immediately they know, oh, that's me. Yeah. All right, so firstly, we talked the other day, money needs to be durable. It needs to survive going through your washing machine. Yeah. It needs to be longer lasting, like the batteries. Duracell batteries with the Energized Bunny. They need to be portable, as we talked about the other day. You need to be able to carry them around with you. Not any good if you can't. Again, where were we? Was it Thailand? Might have been here. We were in a shopping mall, and there was a company that sells gold. You're aware that such companies exist. And they do this quite often in different parts of the world. And I was surprised to actually see it in real life. Because I'd heard this happen, I'd never actually physically seen it. But I was in the shopping mall and they were doing it. And what they had is a little case, little plastic case, and inside the little plastic case was a solid gold bar. Like you see in the movies. And that kind of a brick-style gold bar. Yeah? And the idea was, if you could work out how to get the gold bar out of the plastic container, it was yours. You have it. Yeah. Now, given that the price of gold is, what, about $2,000 an ounce, thereabouts? You're thinking a gold bar that is quite heavy. Remember, gold is the same as lead. So it weighs the same as lead. So if you imagine a brick of lead trying to pick that up, right, it's actually quite difficult to do with one hand. Yeah, that's part of the challenge. But they also had to try and stuff their hand inside the thing and then reach and then try and pick it up and then try and tweak the thing out. And they were able to do that with this. Do you think that would have been Thailand? That doesn't sound like something that happened here. Yeah, you've seen it. There was someone who won it. Not when we were there, but there was someone who won it. And he came up with this weird way of doing it. Right? And I do believe there's a video in YouTube showing you how he did it. I think you've got to have small hands, to be perfectly honest, to get through the little gap that they have. And you've got to have some almighty strength to lift the thing up. Right? And then try and work out the angles in order to slide it out. Now, in order to participate in the competition, you had to have bought something from a particular shop and have the receipt to prove it, and you had to get a ticket and stand in line. So we didn't do it. Is that it? But it was quite interesting as a spectator sport just to stand there and watch these people trying to get the gold out the box. It was quite an interesting thing to see. Right? And if you were ever in the position to be able to have a go yourselves, yeah. Right. You might have a go. Yeah. Quite interesting. You might get it. Needs to be able to be carried around. It needs to be portable. And as we also said the other day, it needs to be divisible. You need to be able to give change. So when you make your notes on this, yeah, you're going to be listing these. But again, this is part of your understanding as to how money actually works. So if any of these break down, money isn't going to be able to do the jobs that it previously could. Should be hard to counterfeit. If it's not hard to counterfeit it, if it's easy to counterfeit it, then it's not going to do the jobs you want it to do. All right, classic example. Can I give you an example of that? Yep. It used to be a thing that economics teachers did. This is going back quite a number of years. All right. Every now and then I still think I should do that. Can't do it in this current climate. Okay? But I was thinking about doing it again, and maybe in the future when you don't get this current loan, right? And it was the idea that your classroom becomes a market, right? You become the workers in the market, and you get paid for your classwork that you do. And if you do better classwork, you get bonus payments. Yes, right? You don't do the work, you don't get payment. That's sort of an idea, yeah? And I've done this many times. And what I will do, and again, this is economic teacher sort of like 101, we've done this for decades, is produce little like pretend dollars. You'd photocopy them on the machine, you get a whole stack of them, and then you'd issue these dollars to the kids, and then you'd have an envelope, you put them in. Yeah? And that was kind of cool because that went, like all of this. I stopped doing it for a number of years because one year I did it. And the students in the school worked out that they had access to a photocopier as well. So they just took the banknote to the photocopier and just printed off hundreds of them for themselves. So, yeah, didn't work. So I actually had to stop the experiment at that point. I did it in Thailand once. It worked in Thailand. But it worked because I did it with virtual currency. So it wasn't real notes. Yeah? Right. It was quite a cool experiment in a way because you get to appoint people to be the paymaster. They're the ones who go around and do the payments. It used to be, and I did this in New Zealand once, and it worked really well. No, it was in China. I can't remember now. I think it might have been New Zealand. Yes, it was. And I charged them for the desk because you're renting space. Yeah. So the most expensive desks would be the ones in the back of the room. Yeah, see where I'm going with that one. Yeah. So if they're at the back of the room and near a window, that's really expensive because that's prime real estate. So then the kids would all come and sit up front because that's cheaper and they could save money. And then I had a teacher come and observe my lesson, and they walked into the class, and every single one of the kids was sitting in the front row. And it just looked like, okay, it's quite unusual, yeah? But they also worked out that they could share property amongst themselves. So it would be more than one person sitting at a desk. Yeah, so you'd end up with like 4 people crowded around a desk built for one. That's sort of an idea. And they'd save their money. They'd build up the money. And at the end, they'd have things that they could buy with the money. And then it became a bit like an auction, and I'd be able to illustrate an auction with them. And they'd be bidding on M&Ms and other things. Kind of cool. Yeah. And we got some sponsorship from some businesses, and they got movie tickets and various other things. DVDs, do you remember DVDs? Do people still watch DVDs? I know we have DVDs in our house, but I'm not entirely sure if people actually watch them anymore. People stream things now, don't they? So it needs to be hard to counterfeit. Otherwise, yeah, the money's not going to do what you want it to do. No? It has to be accepted. And that's where we talked the other day. Abu decides he's going to write his own money. And again, this used to be a thing that we did in New Zealand. We used to get the students to make their own money, with their own designs on it. But the idea being is that it's not acceptable. People won't accept it. But they will accept it if it's, say, in Malaysia from Bank Negara with the official signature on it. They will accept it if the government has guaranteed it. Then they will accept it. And it needs to have some form of value in and of itself. And that value needs to be held over time. Right? So some coins have got an intrinsic value in them. Not a lot, but something. There's a country called South Africa. Some of you may have heard of it. Again, not a good place to go at the moment. But one of the currencies that they used to have in South Africa was a gold coin. And they used to use that quite literally in their, trading all the time. It was called the Krugerrand. It has become the stuff of legend. They don't use it anymore because gold is too expensive. But it has become the stuff of legend because it's now in popular culture and movies where the bad guy is stealing the Krugerrand and the good guy is attempting to stop them. Pretty much the entire plot of Lethal Weapon 2. Saints. Lethal Weapon. Alright. So, as said, functions of money, what money's job is, characteristics or features of money, the ability, the behaviors of money in order to be able to do the jobs that you want money to do. Visually, here it is. Altered value over time, hard to counter, acceptable when making transactions, unit of account, medium of exchange, store of value, and standard of deferred payment. Now, I'm not saying notes and coins are perfect with regards to what money's supposed to do. I'm not. And they're not. I'm also not saying electronic transactions are perfect. That's not either. I mean, the other day we talked about Bitcoins, and we talked about how there is the possible somebody could hack accounts and steal your electronic funds. Yes, that's true. And they do. So that's not then going to be able to do what you want it to do. But there's a security level there. And can you guarantee that it's authentic? Who guarantees it? So if it's a cryptocurrency, it's the issuing company, but it's not the government. So you trust that. Right. So these are the things we need to know. 1, functions and features of money. We need to know 2, what barter is and how it works. Right? How does it work? We need to know why money is better. The double coincidence of wants, we need to know what it is. And we need to know how it is solved. And then this last one, why does money need to be scarce? Now, here's your challenge. Right? Should really put on an Australian accent when I say that. Ready? Here's your challenge. Can you handle the jandle? Stop it. Right? No, the shrimp on the... No, that's fine. Yeah. All right. So here's what I would like you to do. I'm hoping that you have some form of technological device with you. Maybe a computer. If not, your phone, if you have to. Yeah. Now, in your computer, there is a program called Google Docs, which you're probably familiar with. Here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to share a doc, right, which is what all the hospitals have to do. Right. Okay. And in your doc, you're going to share it with someone else. Right? Either someone in the room currently or someone who's doing the remote learning. Okay, so 2 people. All right? You're going to share a doc with those people. Now, it can be more than 1 person if you want it to be. It can be 2 or 3 people if you want. Up to you. Now, what I'd like you to do is this. But the way you're going to do it is by sharing the docs. So you're both, or 3 or 4, or however many there are of you, going to be working on the same document. So you can pick and choose who does what part of it. Does that make sense? Yes? Yes? All right? So that's what you're going to do. Ready? Set? Go. You can choose who you share with. I don't mind. Okay. There you go. Yeah, the scarcity idea is going to help it hold its value. There's quite a very old now, but there's a movie clip that we used to use when we would go through something similar, but a topic called inflation. And it's from a cartoon series from a really long time ago, but it's actually coming back again now. They've got a modern version of it. And it's a cartoon show called DuckTales. It's about ducks. All right? And there's the nephews of Donald Duck and their uncle, who's Uncle Scrooge McDuck. And he's got a professor who invents a gun that creates money. And so the kids think that's a good idea, so they take the gun that creates money and they go around creating lots of money. And then the consequences of that happen. And they learn a lesson. That's what you're supposed to do in cartoons, is learn a lesson. Me have been, yes. Haven't done it for a while now. But every now and then I'll see, because I say I know the one I want is that Zimbabwean banknote. The one that says like $5 quintillion or whatever it is. That is the prize. You get that, it's whew, yeah. 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 Oh yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I collected coins, mainly because my grandfather, when he died, he gave me a whole lot of very old coins. So I had lots of them. I think I've left them in storage in New Zealand, but some of them are over 100 years old. So in theory, I don't know, coin collecting people, they're probably worth money. But yeah, there's a number of them that we over 100 years old now, absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, the coins are probably worth more than the banknotes. But I do know that because it's that idea, it's value in the eye of the beholder. So if you go now onto eBay, you can find almost anything, in the auctions. So the Zimbabwean banknotes, when they get listed in eBay, price goes up. Okay. Because people want them, they're in big demand. And economics teachers around the world, yes, absolutely. Right, so functions and features of money, we're thinking about what they are, okay, what do they mean, so functions and features, barter, what is it, how does it work, why is money better, what is the double coincidence of wants, how is it solved by money, and then why does money need to be scarce? You can also ask Dr. Google if you wish. He is very knowledgeable. You can include images if you wish, if that helps. All right, now what I'm going to ask you to do, ladies and gentle beings. Right? Your task between now and when we next meet, which will be next week, will be to finish working on those shared docs as a review. And then we're going to use that understanding to launch ourselves into a discussion about banks and the banking industry. Right. So if you can work on that, I'll post that into the classroom so that you know what we're doing. I'm going to put the video recording from the lesson up into the classroom so that you've got that too. Right. Otherwise, we're going to finish there for today. You've got blue stuff for your hands, pink stuff for the desk. Otherwise, you can pack yourselves away. Right. Take a couple of minutes to do the packing away, the sorting out, cleaning, and then you can head out for lunch. So as we say in the land of my birth, they call that up, which means goodbye for now.